offense comes off, the 12 plays is 12 plays. You're tired. Kick the ball off, next play's a turnover, you got to go back out.
Right.
So you got to find ways to prepare it on and off the field.
Some guests really need no introduction. But in case you're unfamiliar with Joe Big House Kenn, let me fill you in real quick on this guy's rap sheet. He's a 30-plus year vet of the strength and conditioning game. He's worked and had success at every level of physical preparation, from high school to the pros. And that illustrious career includes a 9-year stint with the Carolina Panthers in the NFL and a trip to Super Bowl 50 along the way. And to my knowledge, he's the only coach to be named NSCA Strength Coach of the Year at both the collegiate and professional levels. So needless to say, I'm pretty sure he knows a thing or two about S&C. But beyond that, Joe is not just a great coach, but someone I consider to be a great friend and mentor as well. We worked hand in hand for years, developing our elite athletic development seminars, which literally helped thousands of coaches across the globe take their game to the next level. Now, when Joe mentioned via text message that he hadn't been on for a year or two, how could I resist bringing him back on the show? This guy is such a wealth of knowledge, and every single time we get on the phone, I walk away pumped up, motivated, and ready to get back in the gym and coach. Now, in today's show, we take a roundabout approach to discuss several key topics. Because if you know anything about Joe and I, we both like to talk. First off, we discuss what he's been up to the past couple of years, and what he's taken and learned since he's moved out of coaching full-time. Perhaps most importantly, we talk about the areas that Joe thinks are useful for up-and-coming coaches, and where he's spending his time learning now. Next, we talk about his latest foray, coaching world's strongest man competitor Brian Shaw, and how you should always be learning and pushing yourself to grow as a coach, regardless of how long you've been in the game. And last but not least, we talk about the evolution of strength and conditioning as a whole. For instance, how do we merge sports science and physical preparation? What things should you have on your radar with regards to data, sports science, and tech as a whole? Now, if you're a regular to the show, welcome back. As always, love and appreciate you. And if you're new here, welcome. I'm Mike Robertson, and this is the Physical Preparation Podcast. In this show, we take deep dives into the art and science of coaching, cueing, program design, business, and personal development. Basically anything to help you become a better trainer, coach, or rehab professional. Now, as you can imagine, this is not only a fun discussion, but there are a ton of key insights in here as well. But before we jump into this week's episode, I want to give you a very quick recap of the week that was and what's new in my neck of the woods. So, as you know, last week finished up, kids are all done with sports. Cade finished up with baseball. He absolutely crushed it this year. So proud of the development I've seen in him. The guy is fast. He can hit. He can throw. We got to work on the fielding and the defense a little bit. We definitely saw that in our final tournament game, but it was just one of those days. Not one kid on our team fielded well. So need a little bit of work there, but all in all, definitely a successful campaign this year. And I'm excited to see him get back out there in fall ball, because big step up there. Not only is it a big step up because now he's in the 3rd, 4th division, but he is also into kid pitch. So really going to be interesting to watch over this next 6 months as he gets more into baseball. So excited about that. Kendall finished up her track season. Didn't run the way she wanted in the 100. There's some technical things that she needs to work on. I think she's aware of now. But didn't have the 100 day that she wanted, but had a great long jump day. I think she added close to 2 feet to her previous PR, so she was definitely pumped about that. And it's just fun. I've really seen her grow up a lot with regards to competing, with her self-confidence, and how she's been performing either on the track or on the soccer pitch over the last month or two. So definitely excited to see that as well and continue to see her growth and her development. So kids sports are done. As far as the athletes go, man, athletes are absolutely crushing it right now, man. I got a handful of guys that are in and out either for individual workouts. A couple guys are in for mini camps. Summer League is literally right around the corner. I mean, I love that about basketball. NBA Finals aren't even done yet, and we're already talking about Summer League starting up here in just a couple weeks. So if you are a basketball junkie like me, you love the fact that, you know, there's some sort of basketball and high-level basketball being played basically year-round. So with all that being said, free agency's right around the corner. I'm excited to see where these guys are going to land because they have worked so hard this offseason. I don't think most people understand or respect the fact that basketball and any professional sport, for that matter, is a grind. Like, there's a lot of work that's involved, and you might get a week or two off when the season's over, just like you or I would take a 1 or 2 week vacation throughout the course of the year. But as soon as they're done, they're right back into their off-season workouts. And man, these guys are working so hard, not just in the gym, but on the court. And I'm really, really excited to see them play here in just a couple weeks. So the athletes are doing great. Then last but not least, this is hard to believe because I feel like I've been talking about it for months now, but I leave today for Slovenia. So when you're listening to this, I'll already be there. But, I'm leaving today. Definitely excited. Love Matej, his gym, his whole crew, the culture there. I just really enjoyed my last trip there. It's going to be hard to beat it, but I'm definitely going to try because I just really want to give not only a great event, but a memorable event and an event that's going to help change the lives of the trainers and coaches that show up there. So definitely excited to travel, excited to see Matej and his team, excited to hopefully give back to all of the attendees. And so that's going to lead me to my last point. Since I'm leaving today, my wife said, hey, over the weekend, why don't you take the kids for a day and go do some fun stuff, go do a yes day. So, we go downtown and there's this pretty cool little place called the Cat Cafe. And basically you can have coffee and you pay like $5 per person or whatever, and you get to go in and there's a bunch of sheltered cats. So these cats have been adopted from other places or they've been pulled from shelters, and it's basically like you get to hang out with them, you contribute to the shelter with your fee, and obviously it's a shelter, so they're trying to house these cats. So you can already imagine where this is going. We're sitting there and all of a sudden Kendall's like, oh my gosh, this cat is so cute, and it's curled up on me, it's curled up on Kendall, it's curled up on Kate, it's just the sweetest cat. Well, what do you think happened? You know it. I brought a cat home. So, husband of the year material right here. I'm, leaving for a week to go travel Europe, and I brought a 3-month-old kitten home. But Cannoli, as they named him, his name is now Steve. Steve the kitten is amazing. He is the sweetest little guy. He's got the just most awesome personality. So we're excited to have another team member here at Team Robertson. So that's it, man. That's enough for me. We're going to take a quick break, and then we're going to jump into this awesome episode with my guy, Joe Kenn. Today's episode of the Physical Preparation Podcast is brought to you by Exerfly. If you're unfamiliar with flywheel training, it's a method of strength training where your athletes generate resistance by using the inertia of a flywheel instead of traditional gravity-based resistance training. By accelerating and then decelerating a disc, your athletes generate resistance at all phases of the movement. This allows for high force training as well as eccentric overloading without the need for crazy heavy weights. I first got interested in flywheel training because I wanted my athletes to be better prepared for sport. Standard free weight training is great for the early preparatory phases, but I wanted something that could improve the rate of force development in both the concentric and eccentric phases of the lift. Most importantly, I wanted to make sure my athletes were prepared for those eccentric forces that they'll encounter in sports. And with their motorized technology, the Exerfly allows you to increase the eccentric phase of the lift from anywhere from 1 up to 80%. The biggest objection I had early on was learning a new piece of tech or equipment. After all, sometimes these things sound great, but really aren't all that functional, or they take forever to figure out. But luckily, if you take the time to watch a few short videos and experiment a little bit, you'll be using the Exerfly like a pro in no time. Setup is quick and easy, and my athletes are absolutely loving it. Last but not least, there are tons of different exercises and variations you can use as well. Whether we're talking squats, hinges, presses, split squats, if you can think of it, chances are you can figure out a way to do it with the Exerfly. The really cool thing is Exerfly is used by numerous teams in the NFL, NBA, over 50% of the English Premier League, and numerous Olympic developmental programs as well. Now, as a small business owner, I normally think, hey, this is way outside of my budget, I can't afford it, because we all know in a small business, every penny counts. But Exerfly has you covered there as well. They offer 36-month interest-free financing, so you can get started ASAP with your training and pay as you go. And when you factor in a 30-day money-back guarantee, 2-year warranty, and free shipping, I really believe this is a solid investment. Look, the bottom line is this. If I don't really love something, I'm not going to promote it on my show. I love my Exerfly, the results I'm getting with it, and I think you will as well. To learn more, head over to exerfly.com so you can start building some savage athletic beasts in your gym. Again, that's exerfly.com. House, man, great to have you back on the show. It's been more than a minute. It's been too long.
Yeah.
For somebody that's been living under a rock for like the last 30 years, give me a short who you are and what you're all about.
All right, I'm going to start it off like this. For the 16%. It's the greatest tagline on the history of Instagram.
Yes.
But for the other 84% too. So
that's right.
Yeah, I've been in the game now overall. I think this is 33 years or something in that area. Not 35 for sure, somewhere in that 32 to 33 years in the space. Been very, very fortunate. Like my growth has been through, like right now, I was telling somebody earlier today, I've coached 10-year-olds to all pros. Yep. And in the next few years, I might be able to change that to say I've coached 10-year-olds to Hall of Famers, because we've got several guys that I was fortunate to coach at the NFL level who are going to be gold jacket recipients at some point in their retirement, however the age goes up in the 5-year windows and stuff like that. So it's been really a great journey to have the ability to train those types of different ages, as well as be at the high school setting, the college setting, the professional setting, and the private setting. And that we've had enough discussions that, especially for those who've never been in organized or organizational type trainings or school systems, that's one of my, kind of my debates is you have these private sector coaches who are extremely intelligent, do a tremendous job in their training, and they'll always say, well, if I was coaching that team, I would be doing this. And what you find out, a lot of those guys, and we know one of them, Lauren Landau, and I think it's okay that I say his name because we've talked a lot about it. And I told him when he got the job, I said, Lauren, you got time restraints, you got rules and regulations. Yeah. That, it's like, these extensive warm-ups that you hear some of these private sector facilities doing, we're going to do 45 minutes of this. Well, I've only got you for 45 minutes. So,
right.
So I think that what you learn is in the organizational setting, you learn condensing, right? Mm-hmm. And then in the private space where there are no rules and regulations of time, you understand how to expand things that really can do the athlete individually a better service, if that makes sense.
Yeah.
So those are things that I think that people need to understand. Like, don't talk about a position you've never been in, because you're going to get exposed in different ways. Like for me, in the private sector, I have a lot more intricate things that I have to learn, because in the team setting, there's a lot more generalization because of time.
Yep.
So you've got to be a little bit more different in your pool selection, exercises, and things like that. So that's been fun for me to be able to manipulate through the different genres or the disciplines of different levels and private versus university settings or high school, because I can speak both languages and not be not be a fraud, like say, well, I've worked that area, right? Like I've worked that space and I understand, and I've worked both of them. So I just feel like a lot of times when you're listening to coaches, just realize their situation isn't your situation and neither is yours theirs. And I think that's a good way for people to understand that there's a lot of cool stuff out there. Like you see it every day, right? Like, man, that's cool. How do you put it in? I don't, and then, hey, that's really cool. But hey, man, I only got this much time in a day to do things. And most guys don't want to be there anyway. So as soon as that clock says punch out time, they're punching out.
Right.
In the private sector, if they're there working with you and they're paying out of their pocket, then they're willing to invest that time. So it's a lot different. So I've been fortunate to stay in that space. And then, a few years ago when my contract expired and was not retained at the Panthers, I was very fortunate to jump into this role with Dynamic Fitness and Strength. Kurt and Tammy Tambernino, really opened their arms to me and brought me into a very cool role of a combination of being an ambassador for their equipment, as well as to be able to still be involved from the coaching standpoint of, going to clinics, being able to meet with coaches and continue to establish the relationships that are huge in this space. And then, from there, I mean, I've been doing a lot of cool stuff and trying to stay relevant. You know how hard that is. And trying to be a mentor and a champion to younger strength coaches that are we're in an age now where it's not what it was when I started, and a lot of it's good, right? Because we've progressed the field and the disciplines and the way things have expanded, and how many more roles and opportunities they are to work in college athletics or team athletics, or even in private practice. But then there's things that are still going on from, say, job description wises, salary wises, choices that younger strength coaches have to make, because administrators and coaches that have done it for a while forget how the evolution of these jobs has changed entry-level type positions.
Yeah.
So those are things that I think a lot of younger strength coaches that have to make choices of internships versus grad school. We didn't have to do that because we just went to grad school and that was a built-in internship.
Yeah.
Well, now with Power 5 schools going so in depth with full-time strength coaches, the elimination of the graduate assistantship has really changed the way we have to write job descriptions. When we came up, it was master's +2. That's easy.
Right.
Because we all had to be a GA.
Right.
There were no full-time jobs unless you were the head guy.
Yeah.
So master's +2 was easy. Well, now it's not, because there's not a lot of those jobs available, especially at the larger levels.
Yeah.
Right. So now you have these opportunities for a young strength and conditioning coach coming out of undergrad. What do? Do I go for the experience or do I go for the education? And depending on who you talk to is going to help determine which way you go. For me, go get the experience, because nowadays you can always go back to school.
Yeah.
Especially online.
Yep.
And because you need the experience. And that's where, if you're going to be a strength, like my son was very fortunate that he knew early what he wanted to do. And there was pressure on him following, me. But okay, if you already know, then there, like we always talk about, we talked about this in some of the presentations that we did together, is, there is no elevator to success. You have to take the stairs. So this is what you need to do. You need to be ahead of the curve for what your age is, or what your chronological age is. So where kids get out of undergrad and don't know that they needed to do internships to be a strength coach, now you're 22 years old and you're going out to do your first free internship. Well, you can't get a job because you know how those internships are. And then you got to worry about, I need to go to grad school. Well, who's paying for that?
Right.
If you're doing a free internship, you can't get a job. Now you're taking out loans, and it's a whole conversation, a podcast for a different day. But like in my son's case, okay, summer of your freshman year, you're doing an internship with Carolina Panthers and Wake Forest.
Yep.
The next year you're working with Geno Pierce down at friggin' Performance Course. The next year you're working with Geno Pierce down at Performance Course. The next year you got COVID, you come back and you work for me in my private facility.
Yep.
So then he gets his master's because he was a fifth year, and then he gets a second master's because he got a COVID year, and then he does an internship with Appalachian State football. He does an internship with Iowa State Olympic sports while he's in school. So now you graduate with 2 masters, and you've got enough experience, paid and volunteers, that sets you up with a chronological age that says you're this, but an experience age that says this.
Yeah.
I mean, no one, and I'll say this too, and I think this is where Springfield College does a good job with a lot of their stuff. But like when Adam Feit worked for me, he was 25 years old with a resume that looked like he was 35.
Yeah. Yeah.
Because of all the opportunities, the internships, the jobs that he was able to acquire because he was a good strength coach and he was sharp and he had drive, put him in a position where he was beating his birth certificate. Like he was getting opportunities that a lot of people are like, how's this guy getting an opportunity? Who's he know? Well, he may know somebody, but look at that resume.
Yeah.
Because the resume is jammed packed with quality internships and jobs that he's had. So that's the tough thing is if you don't really know what space you want to go in, like again, you get to this point and you want to be a researcher, then you got to go get your master's and do a thesis.
Yep.
If you want to be a coach, you need to go learn how to coach.
Yep. So
those are the things that I'm trying to bring up. And I brought some of that up last year when I did a couple of presentations on lessons of a veteran strength coach, that we all got to be aware of the really hard, stressful decisions that these young kids got to make that we didn't have to make.
Right.
It was really simple for us. Hey, man, I want to be a strength coach. Okay, I'm going to go to Ball State, work for, Wade Russell, and I'm going to get my master's in 2 years of strength coach experience. And if I want to go into that space when I'm ready, I'll do it.
Right.
You, Wenning, Pete Bomarito, all those guys who were down there in that Ball State area.
Yeah.
Me, it was, I did it a little different. I needed a break from school. I went to Wake Forest, pretty tough academic school. And after 4.5 years, man, I was not ready to go back to school. So I was fortunate that I landed a high school job where I didn't have to teach. And I was able to just coach football, be a strength coach, and be a dorm supervisor with my wife because we were getting married.
Yeah.
Not so much that I was looking to be a high school coach, and I'm glad that I did do the high school space because I learned a lot, and I actually learned that I could coach because that was my biggest, I don't want to say fear, but my biggest, like, here I come. I said, I've put all of my all my food in this basket saying I want to coach, and now I'm walking out there like, what if I can't coach? Now what am I going to do, right?
Right.
So that was a great experience for me. I learned a lot there, and then, got back in the college space, and then I made my moves, and, fortunately, I've had a really good run, and I've been able to experience a lot, and a lot of people feel like I've done some innovative stuff that has carried across the realm across the United States with some of the programs I've developed, and that's kind of a humbling experience because, everything I did was to take care of the athletes.
Yeah.
And I was very fortunate that people believed in it so much that when I presented it, it made sense to more than just me.
Yeah.
And now, some of that stuff, I mean, the tier system's known around the world, as you know, and Block Zero dominates a lot of the high schools and college entry-level programming, and it's built on its own. It's very organic, but the term Block Zero is originating, from what we did at Arizona State. And with the guys that helped me do that, Mark Uyama, Ben Hilgert, Fight, Brian Dermody, Joe Connolly, Josh Storms. I mean, a bunch of those dudes, man. Leanne Blinn, Christina DeSantis, and just people like that who were all in because we would take our number one goal was, care for those athletes, even though when they didn't think we were caring for them, we were caring for them. And that's the big thing is understanding your role, right? My role. Everybody wants the limelight, and sometimes you get it, but really our roles are, we're the shadow role.
Yep.
Hey, man, we're just a part of the team, and like I've been saying for a while now, my goal is to, do whatever I can for that athlete to achieve their goals, not for them to help me achieve mine. And because in the end, if they win, we all win, right?
Yes.
If your guy's standing on the podium and he's got a smile on his face or she's got a smile on his face, we all got a smile on our face.
Yep.
And if you don't help them achieve their goals, you're going to take it very hard because in the end, failure is on me and success is on the athlete. And it's like anything else. I think, a lot of times in strength and conditioning, you've seen it where a lot of times strength coaches will be like, I don't know why I'm fired. I did my job. They were stronger than they were ever. They were faster. Well, then if they were that much stronger, that much faster, and they still, something was missing. Like, where was the disconnect?
Right.
Like, why did that happen? Because, and that's what I said to people. If you work with a team sport, then you signed up for winning.
Yes.
So you signed up for it. So when y'all get fired, hey, that offensive line coach who had 2 All-Americans got fired too. You don't think he did his job right?
Right. Right.
So you just got to be watchful of of how things go on. And again, it's like, and I think I've learned this both ways because I've been on both ends. I've been out of a job and I've gotten a job when someone else has gotten fired.
Yep.
And, this day in social media, you see a lot of times too, where somebody you may know or somebody with some name recognition gets a big job, right?
Yep.
Gets a professional job. And everybody's like, oh, you're going to kill it. You're the man. Whoop, right? But yet, what about the 4 dudes who just got fired?
Yep.
So, and again, I'm, me, man, I'm a asshole or whatever, I could be that guy too. But like when you're in it, you gotta have a little compassion and you gotta, hey man, there's the other side of the coin.
Yes.
And again, and I don't fault anybody for taking that opportunity, especially in professional sports. I mean, there's only 30 NBA jobs, 32 NFL jobs.
Yeah.
What's it? 30 something baseball jobs? Is it?
Something like that.
Okay. So that's an elite job.
Yeah.
There's only 32 jobs in the world and you had one of them. Well, obviously somebody's going to want that job if you don't have it anymore.
Yeah.
So, and they didn't hire themselves. Like everybody, oh, you pissed that happened? I go, he didn't hire himself or she didn't hire himself. I mean, that's just, hey, I know what I signed up for.
Yeah.
Just like when we were all strength coaches and it got to that point where, hey, you want to be administrative job or you want to be with that football coach and make more money? Oh, I'm going to go with football. I'll take my shot knowing that if we don't win, we'll get fired.
Yeah.
But I'm going to make more money and I'll take the shot. Now you're just another assistant coach. Like that's how you have to look at it. So, very few circumstances in this day and age at the Power 5 level, if a football coach moves on or gets fired, is that strength coach fortunate enough to stay?
Absolutely. Okay, so talk to me. As you alluded to, you've been in the game for a while now, right? And you've had a couple years where you've worked for Dynamic. So I'm interested. Sometimes when you have space from something, it makes you change your outlook, right? Or it makes you think a little bit more. You have some of these realizations. You're like, oh, I never saw this for what it was when I was in it. But now that I'm out of it, I see it. So what insights have you maybe had? It could be coaching, programming, anything that you've had over the last couple years now that you're not literally in there every single day banging weights and working with people.
Well, I think right at the end of my tenure with the Panthers is when sports science.
Yeah, yeah.
Right? What does that mean? I got a degree in health and sports science. What does that mean? It means I'm a friggin', jabroni strength coach. Like, you know what I'm saying? It's like, we and again, I'm part of that nomenclature. Let's throw out some cool terms, right?
Yeah.
See if it sticks. But what does that mean? High performance model.
Yeah.
Well, isn't elite sport high performance? Like, what does that mean?
Yeah.
Like high performance isn't running 24.5 miles on a GPS. It's how well can you perform in the sport you play?
Yeah.
So I would say I've done a very good job of learning that better. Like I'm not going to be the expert. I'm going to hire an expert. It's just the way it is. I know what I'm the expert in. If you bring me into a program, I know who I have to hire to put together the best team.
Yeah.
That's first and foremost. And I think that's one of the things we've seen, right? As investment in the athlete's overall development from physical to mental has evolved over time. What you've seen is it's opened the door to more people getting into this space and getting a full-time job and a career.
True.
For example, when we all started, we were the data, we were the sports scientist, we were the counselor.
Yeah.
We were return to play.
Yeah.
We were the strength coach. We were all these components, us and the athletic trainers, right? Because they had it was just us two.
Yeah.
And before it was us, it was just them.
Yeah.
Right?
True. Absolutely.
So in the end, now what happens is you've taken somebody who's been in the game, the guys who've been in the game 20, 30 years, they've done most of these jobs as part of their original job.
Yes.
And now the evolution is, hey, this has gotten so big, we need a nutritionist.
Yep.
And they still may recommend, peanut butter and jelly at night to gain weight, but coming from them, it's now official.
Yeah, for sure.
Coming from us, hey, drink a gallon of whole milk and eat peanut butter and jelly at night, and you're going to be good to gain weight, right?
Sets of 20 squats.
Yeah. and breathing squats, right?
Yeah.
Super squats.
Yeah.
And then that's the way it was. But now there's somebody with credentials telling you the same thing, holds a little merit. And it's still going down. Go into any friggin', well, not any, but go into a large majority of football halftime or even their stacked areas, and there's Uncrustables.
Yeah. Yeah.
So, just, mental health, right? That's for real.
Yeah.
Depression is real. Stress is real. Like we've talked about it. You really might have alerted me very early on, like in 2009 when we were talking, like the body, stress is stress to the body.
Yep.
Whether it comes from squatting 20 or having a fight with your girlfriend or staying up all night studying for a test.
Yep.
And the outside stressors of life, they've got to be accounted for. Mm-hmm. And I saw that in training an individual athlete this past 6 months, one-on-one. Like I learned that in a one-on-one setting, you really have to understand the entire life of that athlete versus in a team setting. Now, you want to get to know a little bit about their weekly schedule, but in the end, there's always somebody there to support that person in competition. But when you're dealing with a one-off athlete, whether it be tennis, golf, strongman, track and field, and even though it's a team setting in college, it's an individual sport.
Yeah.
You got to know what they're like. Let's just say we train 3 hours a day.
Yep.
You really need to learn what that other 21 looks like because it's going to change the whole dynamics of their training plan. And again, that comes with, different things. But now there's mental health coaches. We're bringing sports psychology. Carlo Alvarez told me this maybe my first 2 or 3 years when I was at the Panthers and Peter was going to get into it. He said, I'm telling you, tell him to go into sports psychology. That's the new wave. And sure enough, what's the new wave?
Yeah. Yeah.
Sports psychology.
For sure.
Sports science, the evolution of GPS, right? We had a very good GPS performance and analyst at the Panthers. I thought he learned it and he went to the next level with it. I thought he did more than what we utilized it for, and I think that's going to help him for the future. Yeah. But I think there's a lot of things there that really help. One can show you things that the human eye can't see, but what I liked it was it reaffirmed a lot of things that I had a belief in.
Yes.
And I saw some of that come to fruition. And it also allowed me to develop plans that when I presented it to the team, it wasn't like, all right, what's this crazy conditioning day we're going to do now? Strength coaches just make this stuff up anyway. And then you tell them it's based off of your yardages you get out of practice. So we're streamlining it to that. We're finding out, that, hey, not every rep's run full speed. Like, they go, run full speed. You got to run 120%, which is nothing believed, it's 100 or nothing, right? And then what you find out is you're never running full speed, or very, very rarely do you hit top speed.
True, 100%, yeah.
Right? You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
And you're training in these ranges. And so now you learn, okay, I don't need to yell and scream at a guy in a 3,000-yard conditioning session to run all 3,000 yards full speed.
Right.
Because his high-speed running, which depending on what algorithm you use and what depending on what GPS units you use, I think ours was based off of 80% of your highest miles per hour plus accelerations and decelerations or something to that matter. So let's just say that was 400 yards. So now you've got a unique aspect of, okay, I want to accumulate this much yardage, but I only need to focus on this yardage at these levels.
Yes.
And I think that's the fun part now, where that's probably the part that I've learned a lot more about, that I wish I was still in that setting to really have those discussions. Like, okay, what does this look like on the field on conditioning day?
Yes.
Like, what should that look like? Like, to me, it was always, well, I'm going to invest that in either change of direction or position-specific work. Mm-hmm. Or some type of football skill-related is where I'm going to invest the high-speed running. Then the ancillary stuff, tempo run or something to that matter, where we can have very low intensity. We just need to get yardage in for helping on recovery. I don't care how fast they run that. Well, I mean, hey, I want to stride.
Right,
I
for
want,
sure.
I want to temp, or something that looks like you're not walking.
Yes.
But again, those are conversations that I'd like to have. A lot of people are jumping on velocity-based training. I mean, we were doing velocity-based training before it was even called that. Yep. It was just called tempo unit, dynamic effort method, 0.7 meters per second, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
And now, it's evolved. I think there's, and we've talked about this too, and I've talked to Brian Mann, I've talked to Dr. Matt Ray, and I still think percentages have value. I think there's a high value in percentages, but I also think now the one thing that I wish we would have done when we jumped on the train that they're doing now is we used the tendos back in the day just for dynamic effort. Yeah. Now I think there's a lot more merit in using it for your higher percentage work, like to really see what that looks like, because it's the same thing with anything else. I talked to Matt Ray about this. Like, if you're using Prilipin's chart, right? Mm-hmm. And you're doing, optimal volume, 8 sets of 2 at 80%, and you're going to go on, like, say, a 3-minute turn, so there's very deliberate rest intervals. Well, there's merit in doing those because of the way most sports are played, right?
Yeah.
Multiple short bouts of exercise with a what's the right word I'm going to use? A non-complete rest, right? Yep. The body's not getting a full recovery, and you've got to attack it again.
Yep.
Well, some people would say that, well, if it starts to fall off a certain percent, cut them. But I say I need to take them all the way through to see what their conditioning level is.
Yeah.
So that if I come back around and do this program again, and just say, like, okay, the guy goes 0.4, 0.4, 0.4, 0.37, 0.36, 0.3, 0.2, right?
Yep.
But then the next time he goes 0.4, 0.4, 0.4, 0.4, 0.3, 0.3, well, I know now he can maintain strength longer.
Yep.
And that's what we want in a game.
Yep.
So I think there's a combination of things like that. I miss that. Like, yeah. Because I really feel like when, talking with Brian Mann specifically about it is, that's what I miss. That's where we missed the boat, because especially then talking with Matt, I did this cluster conditioning test for football, where we did 15 singles on a 35-second cluster.
Yeah.
We started between like 85 and 88%. And I believe that was a good way to test a football player. Hey, we're going to do a 15-play squat drive. Let's see how well you can maintain strength. And what we found out was, from a conditioning standpoint, and then neurologically, right? Because it's a neural aspect of how the what I call the rhythm and flow state of the efficiency of the movement starts to get better, even though they're tired.
Yes.
We saw guys setting new 1RMs at reps 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15. Wow. Imagine if we would have had the tendos hooked on and charted that scores too. How ahead of the Matt Ray always said I was 10 years ahead of the research back in the mid-2000s. How far would we have been ahead if we were smart enough to put the tendos on max effort type work instead of just using it on – and again, I think the guys who are using it, there is value, right? I think there's still a combination that has to be used with having base loads of where's the right opportunities to start and measure. A lot of people are not doing 1RMs anymore, and I can see the merit in that. I'm going to test maximal strength, and depending on what level of athlete I'm training, there'll be, I don't know if I do early on in an athlete's career, I might do some what I call pure 1RM, like it looks like a meat setting.
Yeah.
But as I got older, we did a lot more what I would call training max work, where we would do things like Prilipin and go off the script.
Yeah.
And see where we're at and just set a hard training max.
Yep.
Because I felt that had value, because I train athletes that are going to do multiple bouts of exercise, incomplete rest, and asked to do it again. And we don't know if it's going to be for one play or 15 plus.
Right.
And we don't know how much rest they're going to get between series. I've seen a time where we had a 12-play drive. offense comes off, the 12 plays is 12 plays. You're tired. Kick the ball off, next play's a turnover, you got to go back out.
Right.
So you got to find ways to prepare in and out of on and off the field.
Yes.
I think and that's a mindset. To me, that cluster work and some of the things we did was more mindset than it was physical. That, hey, I know this. All my offensive and defensive linemen knew after doing that 15-rep cluster that they felt very confident that they were well prepared and conditioned to play for as long as they needed to play.
For sure.
And that's the biggest transferable trait. How many times have we said that, right?
Yeah.
Confidence.
Yeah.
If a guy's confident, or if a woman's confident in her preparation, she will excel or he will excel on the day of competition.
For sure.
So I think, I think that's the biggest thing, is watching how what used to be one or two people are now 6 or 7.
Yep.
I've created these models in case I was ever in a position to be like an associate AD or a director of wellness or whatever, and I oversaw the strength staffs, and where I even believe at this point in time there's value in separating your athletic training sports medicine staff with sports rehabilitation, where you have physical therapists, and that's more conducive to post-surgical rehab.
Yeah.
Have a specialist for that, because I know I've seen the days the athletic trainers have. They have worse days than strength coaches.
Yeah, true.
They have a lot more what I would call, I don't want to call it busy work because it's too important, but they've got to have their notes right.
Yeah.
And now you're asking them to do, they're in some ways still, not a jack of all trades, but they have a lot on their plate. If we separate that, and now the PTs, now you got a pressure role, because your role is post-surgical rehab. And then you got the nutritionist, the wellness, the director, the mental health coach, or however you're going to name that, and the strength coach. And now you figure out, okay, where do these all line up in the return to play protocols? Like how much involvement is each of these people in? And that's where you have that interdisciplinary approach. And then at some point, at different points during that process, a different person is going to take the lead.
Yes.
And that's where somebody overseeing that and being a moderator, so there's not a lot of infighting, which we've seen across the board for years.
Oh yeah. Can
really be a key component towards how things are evolving. And again, the biggest thing is, moving forward, and we've seen some strength coaches be fortunate to land some of these administrative jobs. Not enough, because the problem is, what do administrators see when they see my resume? A veteran, well-renowned, award-winning strength coach. And unless they talk to you and they understand what you see from a peripheral standpoint, and if you have a global perspective, it's tough. And again, that's why don't let anyone tell you don't need a network.
Yeah.
Because you ain't getting the job without having a really solid network of people who believe in you.
Love it. Okay. So obviously you've spent 30-some years coaching. You spent some time in Highland Games, correct? You had that foray into the Highland Games. So how on earth do you go from working with football players, working collegiate pro, doing your own Highland Games, to coaching a world's strongest man competitor? And how did I not know about this? I must be totally off the radar. But talk to me about that. Yeah, it is on me. It's on me.
You're not following. I guess you're not following me.
Oh my gosh.
Well, I have done a strongman event.
Okay.
And I won. And I keep this trophy on my office drawer, because generally in strongman you get really cool awards. And the gentleman who gave me this, Chad Coy, I've been busting him up pretty good about it, so we could have some fun. But this is really the only trophy that I have on my desk, because it's a reminder of, I didn't do it to win a trophy. I did it to be a competitor.
Yeah.
And it's just funny because in this day and age of participation awards, that's a participation trophy.
Right.
And it's my first place trophy for the only strongman event I did. I've always been infatuated with strongman. I mean, I've been really fortunate to be exposed to it from having a good relationship with Mark Philippi back when he was at UNLV and I was at Boise State. Leanne Blinn was a world's strongest woman competitor.
Yeah.
And she worked for me. One of my first interns at Boise State, Corey Sinclair, he came on to our powerlifting team, and his goal was to get a pro card. He got his pro card in strongman, and we implemented, we were one of the first schools that implemented strongman type training into a college setting in the mid 90s because we did it because of budget. And Mark did it because he saw the value in it from a training standpoint, from training himself, and it kind of grew from there. And I believe Chris Doyle might have been doing some too at like Wisconsin, and then when he went to Utah. So I think we would have been the three that kind of really popped it in. And then, I spoke about training with those implements at one of the NSCA clinics in the late 90s, and that's kind of when it took off. Tire flipping all of a sudden became a big deal, and all this other stuff. But I've always been infatuated. Like, if you're a competitive powerlifter like we were coming out, when I was done playing and you're around the strength sports, you saw, Bill Kazmaier, John Paul Sigmorison, Magnus Magnuson, Gary Taylor, Yoko Oholo, Rico Curie, Swen Carlson, Dan Reinhardt, Bruce Wilhelm, Franco Colombo, Lou Ferrigno. I mean, all these dudes, Ken Patera.
Yeah.
I mean, these guys were all, there's some, obviously there's a lot more. Jeff Capes, all these guys competed. I've always been infatuated, and I've always been infatuated with that kind of strength because to me, you have to train and possibly lift weights, but to me, that's grown man, farm boy, God-given strength. Like, my respect for that is I feel like I'm a decently strong natural athlete, but I'm weight room strong. Like, like my relative strength is poor. My capabilities to do things with just my body weight are nowhere near what they should be.
Right.
And that's why I built Block Zero for my own kids. And that's why I believe in, hey, you don't get them lifting weights. Believe me, from a health standpoint and from a physical standpoint and a maturation standpoint, I don't care how old they are. If they haven't lifted weights yet, start them off with this, learning how to manipulate their body.
Yeah.
I would love to be able to do anything close to a pistol squat.
Yeah.
Hell, I have a hard enough time doing body weight rear foot elevated squats, right?
Yeah.
I would love to be able to do a pull-up. I think the best I ever did in college was 7, and that's because I worked with a high intensity strength coach, so we always ended on negative chins and dips. So you know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
And that's why, like, even my youngest son wasn't as hard gainer as my oldest, but my youngest son was a hard gainer. My oldest son was very athletic. But like, that's why to this day, I've told Peter, always you don't want to lose the capability of how hard you work to do chin-ups.
Yeah.
So always make sure you do them because they're use it or lose it exercises.
Yeah.
My son Joe did so many pistol squats growing up, like he could walk in here cold right now and do one if he hadn't done one in a month or 2 months. But unlike other people, my son Joe, he got where we went in the weight room and did curls and benches. He's doing glute ham raises, Nordic leg curls, climbing a rope and doing pistol squats, right?
Yep.
And push-ups and all this, where we're in there doing curls and bench and, drinking coffee because that's what the bodybuilders did.
Yeah.
So I've always been very respectful of that space. And it's just funny, like how many people I've worked with that wound up wanting to be strong in the strongman profession or strong woman profession. So I can't. It's when you get I'm going to screw the date up. Let's say somewhere in that 2005 2006 area.
Okay.
We're going through our internship program, and Josh Storms and Leanne Blinn are doing all the internship interviews. And we had a pretty strong internship program before most, and those guys did a great job. All my internship coordinators did a great job, but one of them was you had to send in a video of yourself coaching some deals, coaching some exercises. So they come in and say, hey, man, we got this really good, what do you want to call it? We got a really good prospect, seems to know what he's doing, but we don't know what he looks like. He's like some kind of gigantor. His body doesn't fit in the screen. We can't see what so when he filmed it, I guess the way they filmed it, they must have not checked it. He was coaching, but they couldn't see his head. They just saw this giant dude, right? So so I think it was Josh Storms who really gave him or Leanne. One of them gave him the nick. So he got nicknamed Giganto before we ever met him. So the guy happened to be Brian Shaw. So Brian walks in and you just see this monster walk in and go, oh, that's Gigantor. Let's go. So Brian played basketball in college, was at this point in time, obviously was looking to be a strength coach. We come out, he does his internship. Long story short, he does a good job. There was a position open at another school. He was going to take it. Then he was like, I don't know. And we offered him a GA spot. So we'll just stay here. We got a GA spot. Stay here, work for us.
Right.
And, it was very, very fast after that. And during this time, he's training with us in the summer. Like, we're teaching him stuff. I mean, he just raw, like big, strong, brute, raw, 6'8", 325, athletic, all that. And he comes to us and goes, hey, I don't know if I can keep this job. This is paraphrase. He goes, I just think there's something I need to see this through, and I want to be world's strongest man. I want to go and compete and and try to be the world's strongest man. Now you say that's big words. Like, it's not like, hey, I'm going to go shoot for my pro card.
Right.
Right. It's like, no, I'm going to go shoot to be the world's strongest man. So, who am I to say no? Right. Just like, okay, brother, good luck. And, so he went for it. And obviously he now considered, if not the best, his name is going to be in the conversation of who's the greatest strongman to ever walk the planet.
Right.
Based off of what he's accomplished from wins and what he's done for the sport as a whole, as an ambassador, is even more impressive than what he's done to me as a competitor. So, I don't know if we felt we kind of cut to touch a lot, like. And then when text messaging, things like that, it was easier. And I had always, especially later on, like the last 5 to 6 years at least, for sure, I'd always hit him up after events, congratulating him, and all. If he got hurt, checking on him. And if I saw something on, YouTube's or something like that, send him a little, hey, man, you might want to think about this, or you're doing this. And so it wasn't like we had fallen off the ladder or fallen off the wagon. We were been in conversations back and forth throughout the years. And then, he's been having these hamstring issues with one particular deadlift bar, one particular deadlift deal. I think that was frustrating him. And for the most part, he's got a really good team with him. He's got some people who are extremely loyal to him. And I think he was just looking for some more help. And because he had done most of his programming himself, his whole career. And, we were talking about, I can't remember how the conversation went. Then he finally just asked, hey, would you consider being my strength coach for this run at my 5th title? And I'm like, yeah. If you think that I'm a guy, you think I can help you, I'll do whatever I can.
Yeah.
But I also knew that I knew what I was strong at. I knew what I wasn't strong at. So I told him, I said, this isn't about me. This is about us. I'm going to need you to lean on you when it comes to event stuff.
Yep.
I'm not as polished as you are. And that's why programming now for this next event is, for me, I feel, not that I wasn't confident, because, when somebody's trained himself for that many years and has won 4 times, the guy knows something.
Right.
I'm going to learn something from him as much as he would learn from me. So it was a good team, a lot of back and forth, Sometimes we were on the same page, sometimes we weren't. But in the end, if we weren't, I deferred to him.
Yep.
Because it's his deal, right? Yep. He's the one that's going out there. He's got to be confident in what we're doing. But this, now I feel a lot better because I understand the events more, but I also understand loading. Dave Tate, and I think you might remember these types of conversations with Dave when you talk about how do you train an elite level power lifter if you've never lifted that much weight, right? Like there's something to that, right?
Yeah.
Like if you're a single ply lifter, you have a hard time coaching a multi-ply lifter.
For sure.
You can coach a raw lifter.
Yeah.
But you ain't coaching a triple ply squat suit lifter.
It's different.
Yeah. And like for me, that was my biggest. It's like when I went to the NFL. Up until the time I went to the NFL, I'd always played at the highest level I coached.
Yes.
I was a D1 athlete. So no matter where I went outside of professionals, I could hold my own because I was a D1 athlete.
Yep.
Now you walk into an NFL locker room, playing D1 is like Pop Warner to those dudes.
Right.
And rightfully so after watching it. So you keep your mouth shut, and now you're like, man, how am I going to earn these dudes respect? And that was the same thing here. How am I going to earn Brian's respect when I don't understand what that means to deadlift 1,000 pounds? And I'm programming stuff, and like say it says 675 or 700. I'm like, golly, that's a lot of weight. And you're like, well, at his best, that's like 70%.
Yeah.
So that was, and maybe I was overthinking that, but that was a major concern for me. Like I took that to heart, like, cause I don't know what that's like. Like I would study a lot of stuff on YouTube, not necessarily how well he was lifting, like the lifting technique, but like one tape in particular that I studied a lot was from the Arnold. He was getting ready to deadlift like 1050, and they just happened to do it seemed like a 30 seconds clip of just focusing on him before the lift, like his face.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm just studying like, okay, what is going through this guy's mind? Like, is it very similar to a guy like me who's getting ready to deadlift 600 for the first time? Or is it you got to be in such a different mental state to get to that point where you're going where they said the human body shouldn't go?
Yep.
And what's happening now when you watch this is it's so incredible to me, Mike, and you're a former power lifter and still train hard, is how the body or how the human, whatever the right word is, how the human mind across the world responds athletically when they see a barrier being broken. Like, was it Roger Bannister?
Yeah.
Breaks the 4-minute mile, right?
Yep.
What? 2 weeks later, boom, it's broken again. Or something very quick, right?
Yes.
Well, in our world, if you remember, deadlifting 400 kilograms when we started powerlifting, you were a boss. Like, there wasn't many.
No.
But now, who doesn't deadlift 400 kilograms?
Yeah.
Like,
it's crazy.
It's crazy. And I'm not talking about just giants. 165ers, it's like, and again, it's like everything else, right? It is what it is. The game's change. It's not a stiff bar. Like I just saw another company make a 10-foot bar, deadlift bar. You talk about the flex on that.
Oh yeah.
And then, some of the different ways that bars flex. And so, yeah, you might pull 881, but before the bar breaks the ground, you're at 13 inches.
Yeah.
Or you're at 18 inches. But whatever. I don't care. It's like, I remember when 400 kilogram deadlift, there wasn't many people doing that. Like even deadlifting over 800.
Yeah.
Now 400 kilograms, it's like, you better be deadlifting 400 kilograms.
Right.
Well, and now like in strongman, right? When Brian first started, chasing 1,000 was huge.
Yep.
They had that one event overseas where 6 dudes pulled 1,000 in the same meet. And now they're chasing, 1,100. They're chasing the 505 kilograms.
Yeah.
So that's where I had to wrap my head around most. And then the programming itself, and we're doing something very unique for this particular programming moving into the next event because of life issues, like we talked about, like learning life. knowing your athletes. Different athletes have different lives. Their days are built differently. But as I continue to stay involved in this and hopefully, working with Brian and, if I get the opportunities to work with others, I'll be able to dial in events, lifts, how to rotate them in the off season.
Yep.
How do they evolve, or how do I structure it during the comp phase? And then when it really gets tight, it's all, do we go all in? Like, hey man, we got to dial it in. We're going to do mock runs. And so it's been good. And it's just crazy that your first opportunity to do this, you're doing it with the greatest.
Yeah. Doesn't happen very often.
No. So, and again, his goal was to win. My goal was to help him win. We came in fourth. That's on me. Like, he won't say that, and I appreciate that, but I take value in what our goal was. Right. I know how hard he worked regardless of, outside stressors, and he did the best he could with everything else going on. And that's all you can ask.
Yeah.
And we came up a little bit short. The question is, what does that look like to him, right? What's his next? What's his big decision as it moves forward? Because the game has changed just like everything else. The depth of greatness in World's Strongest Man is at a high level.
Yep.
This year, the field was stacked. I mean, Brian came in fourth. You can say what you want. He's a 40-year-old man. He has the most top 5 finishes in World's Strongest Man history. He's one place off the podium. And in the end, I look at it different as a coach. You always want your athlete to be on the top of the podium.
For sure.
But there's a reason why there's a podium. You want podium finishes, right?
Yeah.
Like, that's how I look at it. Like, get on the podium. Like with my son, he came in third place in the Sun Belt Conference in the Hammer his junior year. That's a podium finish. They can't take that away from you.
Yeah.
You're a bronze medalist. That's the best you could be on that day. That's from a kid that wasn't even supposed to be on the college track team.
Right.
So for me, you want to chase the championship. And then when you look at the depth of the finals in particular, there was 4 former champions entering the finals. And those 4 champions came in first, second, third, and fourth. So it was stacked.
Yeah.
Tom Stoltman, who won, he won back-to-back. Tremendous athlete, another 6'8", 400-pounder, but he just turned 28 the day after he wins.
Yeah.
And he's the first guy to go back-to-back since Brian, right? Second place finisher, Martins Lisis. Tremendous athlete. I don't know if you've seen him. He's been on like some of the videos with Dr. Horschig, Dr. Squat, Squat University. His mobility and flexibility for a human that big is unprecedented. What he's able to do, balance, coordination, depth in his squat, pistol squats. I mean, there's a reason why he's a World's Strongest Man and Arnold champion. Very few guys have both.
Yep. He
comes in second. I think he's 31. And then Alexei Novikov from the Ukraine, who won it in 2020, he's 26. He's about 6 foot, 6'1", 300 pounds. So a little bit smaller than these other guys. And then Brian at 6'8", 4+, he's 40. Yeah. So, and then the gentleman who came in fifth, Max Boudreau, he was third the year before. The guy who came in sixth, Trey Mitchell, he was fourth the year before. So you see what I mean, the thing was stacked. And it's only getting more stacked. Like, you see some of these other guys that didn't make the finals, and you're like, they're one event, 2 places. They get 2 points more, and they're in the finals.
Yeah.
And so it's crazy. And being a part of someone's team is different than being a spectator. Like, I got to see some cool stuff behind the scenes, watch the professionalism of my athlete and how meticulous he is in his preparation at night, preparing his bag for the day's events. I mean, just like little intricate things that you don't think of, that he's ahead of the game.
Yeah.
And on top of that, the respect that the other athletes have for him because of what he's done for the sport and the fact that he's willing to stand up for their rights in some respects.
Yeah.
Was that to me was more impressive than his ability to go out there and compete for 5 days in a 6-day period with young kids. I think Mark Felix, who's one of my heroes, was in his group. Mark's my age, and he's still competing at World's Strongest Man. This is his 17th appearance. And he's actually 56, but he was born the same year as me. His birthday, my birthday falls in October. And he won. He set a world record in the wrecking ball hold for like 2 minutes and 20 seconds. The guy's holding on like a short straight arm curl bar, like a tricep press down bar, holding a 500-pound wrecking ball, and he went 2 minutes and 20 seconds.
Oh my gosh.
He smoked the car walk, 950-pound car walk, and it was very impressive. In the deadlift ladder, he did the first 3 loads with no straps, and then pulled the 4th with straps. So the 4th was 800 pounds at 56.
Wow.
And then, then Luke Stoltman was 37. But then after that, I'm not super sure because I didn't have the ages of all, but I think all the rest of them are in their 20s or low 30s.
Yeah.
So that's, and I'm excited, like, and not have, being out of coaching, the chance that I got, like, I'm thankful that I got that opportunity because, now I'm in that coaching mode at night, right? Pulling out my charts.
Yeah.
That's like, all right, how do I dial this in for this guy? Like, he's trusting me, man. He's counting on me to make sure that I got this thing going. And I like that. Like, I missed it and it was good. Yeah. So it was luckily for me, again, I have a great role. I was able to fit it into my schedule and invest that time. And like I told you off air, I now understand the new virtual coaching, right?
Yeah,
like online, what the online coaching space is, right? Where what can you offer a high level athlete where you're not in the same town as him? Like, what does that look like? Like, how many, when it comes to here's the program, right? I need then video analysis. You do a video like for Brian. There was a couple of times where on video analysis, because we're doing slow-mo and voiceover, a 8-minute video might take 2 hours to get done.
Yeah, for sure.
So you're doing the editing, you're making sure you're saying the right, trying to learn the cues, like building mental cues that work for him, right?
Yes.
It may work for me, but hey, let's see if this cue works.
Right.
We found one late when how many times during a program do you need to fly out and be with them? Like, one of the best sessions that I think we had was when I was out there.
Yeah.
And a lot of it probably was it all fell in the right place. We had good training partners with us. We had Gabe Pena, who was in the World's Strongest Man, and in Brian's group, and Nick Best, who's my age, who competes at a high level and is hoping to get back to World's Strongest Man next year. So we had a good group in there, but Brian had a great week, and we had learned something with his behind the head push jerk, just one simple term: pop the feet, and all of a sudden it got springy. And we were able to set a PR at the event and just miss 500. So yeah, it's crazy, man. These dudes are just like, whoopie-doo. I think Novikov did 240 behind the neck push jerk. So that was
528.
Yep, something like that. And he had more in him. Like I've got a lot of the videos that I was told I can't put him out by World's Strongest Man until July 9th when they launched his shows.
Yeah, sure.
But he had more.
Wow.
And somebody had said in training he had done 250. I could see that. Like, I could see that. He split jerked it too. Him and Lisi split jerked. 2 guys went from the front, which that was tough.
Yeah.
Then most everybody else did a snatch grip because they're so big.
Yeah.
Did a snatch grip behind the neck push jerk. Push press. We were more of a push presser.
Yeah.
Tom Stoltman did 236. He push pressed it easy. Lisi split jerked 230. And then Novikov's split jerk to 240. But yeah, and again, what you also know too, this is the first time I've coached an athlete where the weight room mattered.
Yeah.
Like,
yeah.
You know what I'm saying? Like, hey man, you got to do 700 and what do you have to do? You got to do 350-pound car deadlift for reps. You better be able to deadlift 350.
Yeah,
350
exactly.
kilograms. You know, it's not like, oh yeah, Johnny tight end missed 400 on the bench today. It's not going to affect what he does Sunday.
That's right. That's right.
My guy got a bench, you know, it's like training powerlifter. My guy misses 400. He ain't getting on the platform.
Yeah, exactly.
He's not podium this week. So that was a challenge too, knowing that, hey, what you're doing is going to have a direct correlation to what he competes at.
Yes. Yes.
And then watching that, like powerlifting, it's hard on the body. Like the fact that they're already one guy that didn't make the finals, but was at World's Strongest Man all week. He competed in like Britain's Strongest Man the very next weekend. And these guys are already training for other meets. And I'm like, should they need another week off?
Right.
So I've learned a lot. It's been really cool. I can't thank Brian enough for bringing me on, because I think there's some, maybe I got some more to show other people.
Yeah.
In different ways in the sport. Next year it's at Myrtle Beach. So it's like 40 minutes from my condo. And
there you go.
I'm like, man, I wonder if he's going to do it again.
Let's go, man. Run it back.
Yeah, we'll see. And again, it'll be when you're that close. And when he does his own debrief, because I sent him my debrief, it was like 6 pages long, and the good, the bad, and the ugly, right? That's part of being honest with your athlete and honest with yourself.
Yep.
I'll be interested to hear his, how he determined how everything looked and how it all went, because that's the story to tell, right? It's his story to tell, and I was very, very fortunate that I was allowed to see what that looks like. We had a really good team. James Newsom was his handler, and James has been with him for 4 years. So it was, with the way they limited passes for like coaching passes and stuff, we just, that was the best decision for us. It wasn't for me to be back there. I've never handled him before.
Yeah.
The last thing I need him to do is worry about if I know what the F I'm doing with tacky, what shoes to wear. And but I was able to be in his room when they packed it. When I was there in the morning when they reviewed the pack, I'm carrying his bags out to the bus for him. So I got to see all that. I got to learn all that.
Yeah, that's awesome.
Steve Foshin was kind of my voice and my eyes and ears, that he was there a lot with Brian's training sessions. And he was able to give me really good feedback, because again, as you know, there's a difference when you can have a 360 view versus, hey, turn the camera at 45, and then I'm watching the same view for most of the session. Where if you're there, man, I'm gonna be flowing.
You're moving.
Yeah. So those are things that you have to understand when you sign up for this, right? And that's why it's depending on, obviously everything's financially based sometimes, is depending on how the program's structured and how you're able to do it financially. What's the right amount of times to get out there, and what's that space look like? Like I thought, after being there and watching how he went, under ideal situations, get out there once every 6 weeks.
Yep.
Under ideal. In the off season, 1 out of 8. And then if it's a really crucial time, like a World's Strongest Man, again, if able, and again, a lot of it is distance, right? If it's shorter distance, it's easier. Like, from what I gather, the gentleman who trains the reigning champ and his brother, the Stoltman brothers, he lives a long way away also, like hours. So he doesn't get up there much either. They're relying the same thing as everybody else, from what I gathered. A lot of coaching, a lot of, sending stuff through the internet, sending videos back and forth, making adjustments. And, and again, that's hard, because the athlete's still relying a lot on himself then when he's in there, and you're waiting to hear feedback on a text or an email and sending videos.
Yep.
But that's the space we're in. I think, not that we want to rehash it because it's still out there a little bit, the whole COVID pandemic and things like that, but that's changed the way people train, right? The home gym phenomenon and training a home and the non-commercial gym space has changed.
Yeah.
Gyms like yourself are a little different. They're private.
Right.
But the commercial setting, I mean, especially now with some of them being, depending on where you go, how much it costs for a yearly, I'll take that $1,000 and buy my own equipment.
Exactly.
Convert my garage or a spare bedroom into a little studio.
For sure. Okay, man. Running up against the clock here. I know my kids are going to start yelling at me soon, but I got one more question for you. One more question.
We always set records. I know.
You do set records. What's next, man? I mean, 33 years in, you've done it all, man. Like, really, you've done it all. You've educated, you've coached, you've done every level, public sector, private sector. Like, what's next to tackle, man?
I want to be an advocate to the younger strength coaches. And again, I have a very good job. They treat me great. Wherever that leads, we'll see. There's a lot of ways we can evolve this position. You can never say never in coaching. You know how that goes. It's because it's a people business. The right people get the job, and you might have an opportunity to be hard to pass up. I enjoyed it tremendously being in the strongman world and seeing it. I don't know where that's going to go. That's going to be interesting, and just continue to build relationships with people you believe in. Me and you run it back.
Yeah.
I mean, I think there'd be a lot of people, again, to see where we've evolved from and what we've done and how we've expanded on it, right? Like, stick with, like I've always said, man, the tier system's a template. I'm going to do a lot of cool things, but that template's not changing.
Right.
It's kind of like with hey, I'm going to do a lot of cool things, but the 7 R's is the 7 R's. And what falls in those 7 R's, man, there's a lot of cool stuff I'm figuring out, right?
Yep, absolutely.
And that's kind of the cool stuff about it, where a lot of times we see these strength coaches jumping ship real quick.
Yeah.
You're not going to see the world change in 8 weeks in strength and conditioning or a strength training program or the development of an athlete. And, there's a lot of very smart strength coaches out there right now. Like, some of the stuff, if you can decipher the manure, there's a couple of kids out there, and they're kids to me. That's not a disrespectful term. No. There's a couple of guys out there, man. I just love what they put out. And I've been fortunate enough that I was able to meet a couple of them. So now I have even more respect of what they're doing and how they're doing it. And that's, now the big thing is, it's like we talk about, in the end though, can you win, right? All this stuff is great. Kids are all bought in. You're getting all these great, KPIs, but there's only one KPI that matters, and it's the win-loss record, and that's the tough part of our job. Like, we've got to accept that. So I mean, for me, me, man, I always got I'm a global. I look like this, man. I got big perspectives.
Yep.
Always looking the peripheral. I want to be with my grandkids more than I do, but that's hard for me because I just live my life I just do things that just don't put me sometimes in the right spot.
Yeah.
I want to, working from home has been tough. We've talked about that. The routine part, I've taken me a while to figure that out, but I got my grandkids are here. So I think today's their last day of school. So I'll probably see them this weekend. And my oldest son lives right down the road. So I got a lot of things that I want to do that kind of encompass everything, but there's never not going to be a day that I ain't doing something when it comes to training or talking training. Cause that's really, like, people go like, what's your hobby? I like lifting weights.
Right.
Like, well, what's your job? Watching guys lift weights. He goes, that's your hobby. I don't, hey man, it's, what do you like to eat? I can eat the same thing every day. I just, it's an interesting question to pose. It's a hard one for me to answer, but I do know this. In the end, what I've learned, and I can be upfront and honest. Hey man, I've always said I reserve the right to be wrong, and it's my opinion.
Yeah.
But I've earned the right to say my opinion out loud.
Yeah.
And hopefully, whether you agree or disagree with it, it at least gives you the ability to stimulate some thought.
Yes.
And be able to understand that, man, what's going on in this field and in this space is evolving exponentially, kind of like the high school strength coaches, right? When we came out, man, what's a high school strength coach? Now there's some of those weight rooms and jobs are better than college jobs.
For sure.
And you're seeing more and more college guys like, I'm not doing this. These people, I'm going to go have a quality of life and still be able to do what I do. And that's the big deal, is that. So I'll be interested to see how a lot of this changes. There's some really smart people out there that I respect a lot. There's a lot of young kids that need people like us giving them direction instead of just feeding them, what they want to hear and or what you think they need to hear.
Yep.
You need to tell them all their options. Like,
yes,
hey, man, if school matters, go to school.
Yep.
If you want to be a coach, then you got to coach. But you got to know, here's where the rubber is going to meet the road. Yep. And are you able to sacrifice financially, whether you got a relationship?
Yep.
How's that going to look? Because that's why you see people bounce around or don't last as long. Fortunately for me, I've lasted long, and I've had really good runs, but I've been around a lot of really good people to help me get there too,
yes.
right?
Yes.
That's, it's like, and then people don't know what they don't know, right? Oh, House, I want to be you. What, you want to move 7 times? I haven't ever moved.
Yeah.
My wife's moved 7 times. My wife's put my kids into school 7 times. Yeah. My wife's pulled them out of school 7 times. Yep. My wife bought all my houses. My wife sold all my houses. Like, that's not right. Like,
yeah,
some of that stuff sounds like, oh man, what? But that's, she's her burden has been worse than mine.
Yeah.
Hey, I'm taking a new job. Yeah, we're making more money, but I'll see you in 6 months.
Right.
And then she's got to worry why the kids are pissed off because their dad's not around because he had to start a new job. And, so those are, there's a lot to it than just running out to the Super Bowl 50.
Yeah.
Or working with the world's strongest man. I mean, those are highlights, but there's a lot of things that are behind the curtain that people need to understand. It's like Rocky said, right? The world ain't always sunshine and rainbows, brother.
That's true. It's true,
Crazy
man.
world, man.
It is. But dude, this has been awesome. Always great to catch up with you.
Good to catch up.
Yes. Where can my listeners find out more about you?
BigHousePower.com.
Yep.
And we're due for a renovation. We didn't even talk about the reinforcement piece. We're getting ready to launch the reinforcement course for head and neck support, neck training and strength training for neck and head support that you were a big influence on the way we program our stuff. The reinforcement is specifically from the R programming model. And we're getting ready. It's in editing now. We're looking to get that there as soon as we can. And then Big House Power, I'm mostly an Instagram guy. I'll be honest with you. I mean, I kind of float Twitter, but to be honest with you, man, I'm spending most of my time on Instagram. It just seems like that's the best social media outlet for strength training and fitness because of what you could, you're not limited in your characters.
Yep.
You're now with the reels, like I found that reels for me is a better reach.
Yep. Me
than
too.
the stories and reels is what I've been investing in, and it's kind of paid off. And then again, and I'm pretty good at answering the DMs. I mean, I'm going to write a new rap song. It goes down in the Strength Coach DM on the Instagram.
Yeah. Yes.
And then if you are going to ask about a job, I'm probably going to give you a real email address because that's more, that's more professional. Don't hit me up with sending a resume through Instagram DMs.
Yeah.
Ask me for my email address. And but I mean, but again, Mike, right? We used to laugh about that. Don't contact me through social media. But if that's how everybody communicates, then guess how you got to contact them? Hell, I'll do it now.
I know. And
reach out to people on contacting through direct messaging on Twitter or Instagram.
Me too.
So, yeah. And then, again, man, always great. When you asked me to come back on, I was like, that. Andy McCloy's still a boss.
But he's not the boss of bosses.
Hey, he's not the bigger boss than us. But yeah, man, great catching up, and let's chop it up, man. Maybe we should do something maybe next year, 2023.
I love it, man. We'll get it on the books.
Yeah, we got to figure out what city to move it into, man. We got to maybe expand it out there to the big timers.
I love it. All right, man. Well,
hey, man, I appreciate it, Mike. Thank you very much.
Dude, my pleasure.
Later, brother.
Oh. All right, my friend, that does it for this week's episode with Joe Kenn. Really hope you enjoyed it. I love catching up with this guy. I realize our episodes that we do together tend to trend a little bit long, but hopefully that's because there's so much good information, right? And I love the way Joe talks because, you know, there's a lot of stories in there. There's a lot of reflection in there. It's not just, hey, do this, do this, do this. It's, you know, hey, I did this and here's what I learned from it. So I love that aspect of how he talks, and I hope you enjoyed it as well. And I think one of my favorite parts of this episode was just the fact that you can see 30 some years into the game, like Joe is still learning. He's still putting himself out there. He's trying new things. You know, I couldn't imagine going into World's Strongest Man. You know, he competed in a little bit. He had a little bit of a background in Highland Games, but this was not his forte. So this is something totally new, but he put himself out there to continue to grow and evolve. And I think that's just one of the many reasons I have so much respect for Joe and everything he does. So if you enjoyed this episode, do me a small favor. If you're not already subscribed to the show, go to wherever you consume podcasts and do that right now. iTunes, Stitcher, SoundCloud, Spotify, Google Play, the Amazon store. Again, wherever you consume podcasts, go there right now, hit the subscribe button. It'll take all of 2 seconds, and you'll know each and every week when a new episode drops. So my friend, as always, thank you so much for your support. Love and appreciate you, and we'll be back next week with our next episode. Take care.